Welcome into this week's edition of AWA Unleashed. We like to call ourselves the preeminent #1 podcast dedicated to reliving the memories and telling the stories of the AWA when the voice doesn't crack, mind you. My name is Chris Tubbs. I am going through puberty once again, apparently, according to my voice. But two men that are, I don't know, they're just immature. I would say they're not necessarily going through puberty, but they are immature, but they are my friends. They are Joe Chupik and Mick Karch. As somebody in the current business said, tell me when I'm telling lies.
You know, I'm going to respond to your comment about being immature. So there you go.
Hey, to quote the late Pee Wee Herman, I know you are, but what am I?
There you go.
Good way to fit that one in there, Chris.
Well, we've got a really fun show today for wrestling fans. We love to kind of talk about the nostalgia, obviously. But today we've got a guest that really fits that criteria, where there's a brand new, it's a must-have book. Out of all the books about the AWA that are really going to take you back down memory lane, there's no question that this is the one that you have to have. Oh, and by the way, if you want to get it for a Christmas gift, we're just a few minutes away from Christmas. Makes a great stocking stuffer. Just saying, if you don't want it now, you want to sit it, you want to kind of, just kind of, put it in the back of your mind here. Put it in the back of your mind. Got some business to take care of. First of all, you see Soda Stick. Thanks to Soda Stick for the AWA Unleashed swag. SodaStickCO.com. If you want your personalized hoodies, you want your AWA Unleashed podcast T-shirt. I'll put the information up there. If you don't have it, use the promo code Unleashed for 15% off. Also, 7th Avenue Pizza. I love pizza. You love pizza. We all love pizza. If you don't love pizza, that's a you problem, as my daughter would say. But 7thAvenuePizza.com, you can find it. I believe at Colborn's now, Hy-Vee. There are a bunch of different retailers around the Twin Cities and the Upper Midwest. If you don't have it, let me know. Hit me up in the comments at YouTube, MySpace, Facebook, Snapchat, InstaChat.
MySpace?
Threads chat, whatever. I don't know. I just threw that. I believe I looked at the calendar and we're taking it back. We're going to party like it's 2007, guys.
You've raised my curiosity, and I'm checking. Is MySpace even around anymore?
Well, give Twitter enough time to shit the bed, and it probably will make a comeback. Tom's just sitting there waiting for more friends.
I think it's done more than that. Twitter, it's been flushed down the toilet already for me anyway. But that aside, let's get back and do some wrestling.
Let's do it. Mick, I'm gonna let you introduce our guest. And by the way, it's a special anniversary for you. I want to. We'll get to that a little bit later on if I remember. If not, it's probably not important enough for me to talk about. But let's talk to our guest here.
Let's bring her in. Talk about people who are really mature and behave themselves in class acts and everything else. Obviously, we've taken us out of the equation. Yeah. We're talking about our friend, our dear friend, my friend of over 5 decades, Joyce Paustian. And we're going to talk about Joyce's new book, all about her experiences with the AWA. And I want to tell you, it is absolutely a phenomenal book. I loved it. If you're a fan of the AWA going back to the 1970s and you want to get not only the candid pictures, but the photographs from ringside, it's just a great book. And Joyce, first of all, Chris, am I correct that Joyce is the only guest that has made a return appearance on our podcast?
She is. She was on before, and she kind of, I don't know, through the Beezook. Yeah. So we got her back on, and it dropped a couple of weeks. Well, it was available a couple of weeks ago at Waterloo, and it seemed to go over really well. So it was just a natural. I thought it was kind of a natural thing to have her back and really promote the book, because I mean it's one thing to have the words and tell you, explicitly this is what happened, but you've got a really nice complimentary of pictures that go with the stories. And I think that's what makes Joyce's book so different. And I mean, literally, it's a must-have because you get stories, but you get the pictures, and you feel like you're actually there. As I was reading it, like I would be lying if I said if I didn't bulldoze through 3/4 of it within the first like 48 hours that I had it.
Well, Joyce is a class act, and she knows how I feel about her, and her success with this book. I'm incredibly proud of her. But I will say this: the last time we had you on the air, I mean, it was a total kayfabe job. It really was. We talked about your experiences with the AWA, but the book was kind of under wraps. So first of all, explain to everybody why you were, kind of keeping the lid on the fact that you were doing this book.
Well, hi guys, anyway, and thanks for making me feel really old. And I either am mature and didn't learn anything from the first visit, or I'm a glutton for punishment. One of the two. But anyway,
we're desperate for content, Joyce. That's the reality. We're desperate for content. Let's just rip it off.
The book has been an evolving process. When I first was going to do a book, I thought somebody else was going to work with me on it. I thought I would just be supplying photos to that person, and just needed captions, and I really wasn't intending to write stories. Then that kind of fell through, and I wasn't sure if I was going to continue with the book, and I couldn't figure out how to lay out the book. It seemed kind of dry to just go chronologically or to go based on each wrestler. I wanted to showcase all of the great AWA wrestlers and a few of the not so great ones, but so I ultimately decided to go city by city as my experience happened, and how my wrestling photography career, if you will, proceeded. So it was kind of just a work in progress, and I didn't have the full concept in my mind of how it was gonna end up. So that wasn't really intentional that I kept it under wraps at that time. So, but I am really glad it's done, and I'm not sure I would have, if I'd have known everything that was involved in book publishing, I'm not sure I would have gone through with it at the time. But by the time we got to the end, I had put so much work and effort and money into it. I decided we got to get this done now. We can't just leave it, 80% done.
So when you decided to take on this project and you thought somebody else was going to be a part of it, how long did it take from that process, from that moment that you realized that you were basically going to have to be a one-person show? How long was the whole process from that point to the very end in publishing?
I would say the concept of this started 2.5 years ago, and then maybe that was in process for half a year, and then so I would say off and on 2 years it's been in progress. Just going through the number of photos that I have, I know it's a good problem to have that many photos from the years, but trying to narrow it down and say, yeah, this is one I should show, and this is one that unfortunately didn't make the cut. That's one that didn't make the cut. That was one of my early photos. And early on, I was shooting primarily Nick Bockwinkel, and when he would be over on my side of the ring, I couldn't help but take pictures of him. And I believe Mike Gratchner threatened me with that one, that if I published that one of Brunzell, that he would hunt me down. So
I've seen Jim look better occasionally than he does there. Nick, of course, applying that reverse neck massage, strictly illegal hold.
Not a joke.
But Jim, I mean, talk about being blown up in a match. Jim looks like his head is about to take off on a solo mission to Mars.
Doesn't it?
Oh, God.
Wow. I think it was just a bad moment for him. I must have caught him at a bad moment, but It was really tough to narrow down the photos. If I'd have included all the photos that I'd wanted to, this book would have taken 2 more years to process, and it would have been 500 pages long. And then nobody'd be able to afford it. So it was, and there were a lot of stops and starts when I started telling some of the stories that go with it. I had to kind of ask myself, do I want to tell that story? Will people enjoy it primarily, or will they be able to relate to it? And it was just lots of different questions in my mind of what do people want nowadays? What's not available? What's going to be a repeat of what's already out there? And ultimately, I settled on telling positive stories about the AWA and what it was like to be a fan starting out, and maybe, learning more about the business as I went along, and getting to know some of the guys, and then, in some cases being glad, and in some cases wishing I didn't know certain things.
So Joyce, your book covers, as we saw, there's ringside photos, but there's also behind the scenes photos. And we all know, and especially in that time period, that kayfabe was still around and the promoters were very protective of the business. How did you get into the behind the scenes and earn the trust of those promoters?
A lot of that was due to Nick himself. He kind of took me under his wing, so to speak, a little bit. I think he wanted to protect me. He met me at age 12 or 13, and I think he one time told me that I reminded him of his second daughter. So I think he wanted to keep me away from some of the bad elements of wrestling, but yet he could see my enthusiasm and see that I wanted to be part of this. And he enjoyed my fan connection too. Mick knows that Nick would say, I don't care about fans at all, but he with everything that he agreed to do in the Bachwinkle Brigade, he always agreed to everything. He just begrudgingly would try to say, I don't like it, but he did. And and then I also have to credit Mike Gratchner, who's a Midwest photographer, for also helping me open some doors there and give me some chances to take photos. I mean, I had a ringside seat, so they couldn't, and you were allowed to take photos. So, but mostly it was initiative that I would go up and ask the wrestlers to an autograph a picture, and then they'd see the picture and say, that's a pretty good picture. I don't have any pictures of myself in the ring. Can you give me a copy of that? And I'd bring it the next time, and they'd say, yeah, and they'd remember me. That was kind of my my entrance into the photography initiation. And then I started sending some photos into some of the Midwest magazines and programs, and got known that way. And then of course Mick, getting to know Mick was a door opening in the Minneapolis arena that he knew a lot of the things going. He got me into some of the TV tapings with the brigade conventions. So a lot of people to thank along the way.
Joyce, there's for you and I, at least, there's a recurring theme that we got into the business because Nick helped us along the way. And, you hit the nail right on the head. Everything he did was, allegedly, pulling teeth. But the fact that you said he protected you and he looked out for you, knowing Nick the way I did, I absolutely understand that. And Nick being so protective of the business, and Joe made mention to the kayfabe era that we were in back then, and it really was a protected era, especially with the Ganyas, at the forefront. But you earned Nick's trust, and that's a good door opener for sure. And needless to say, for the next however many years, 40 years, he was always there for you and me, and that's kind of a recurring theme. We'll get back to Nick periodically. You went all over the place. You mentioned, coming to the Twin Cities for the brigade conventions. And so you went to the big arenas. You went to the St. Paul auditoriums or Minneapolis auditorium, but you also spent a majority of that time in Rockford or Moline or whatever it was. First of all, give us a little delineation between the big arena setting. I mean, some of it is obvious, but from where you were sitting as a fan and as a photographer. And then tell me some of your favorite cities or towns, small towns, whatever, where you felt the most comfortable taking your shots.
Yeah, basically going to the different cities was out of necessity if I wanted to just remain an AWA fan. I was in my glory the first several years from 76 till the summer of 79 when they decided to stop running matches in Davenport, Moline, which I thought would continue because, Don Markson was related to the Gagne's in-law, and they fully intended to continue, but the TV studio didn't want to run the show anymore. They had a new manager, and so I was heartbroken. And so the nearest AWA city was Peoria, and so that was 90 miles away. And so I would go down there every 3 weeks then, and Mike Gratchner would get me to access at ringside down there, and it was a great town too for a while. But that went for a couple of years, and then all of a sudden they didn't run AWA. It turned into a WWA town. So I had to then turn my attention to Rockford, which I remember asking Mike, it's like, this one's not going to go away too, is I started to see a trend there. And then we got up to Rockford, and it was Dennis Hilgert, and he ran Milwaukee and Green Bay and a lot of the smaller Wisconsin towns. And those were great times. Rockford fans were really something. And we had a high school gym, but it was a huge gym, and they really would pack them in.
Was that Boylan?
Yeah, Boylan High School.
Okay.
Right.
Gotcha.
And they got a lot of great talent. The talent seemed to like Dennis, and it was always something they could run and get to Milwaukee or Chicago the next night. And so we got a lot of great matches over the years, and they would run every 3 weeks. And so that lasted for like 6 years. I didn't get into Chicago and Milwaukee big time until about 85. But there were a couple of great years, 85 and 86, or things were still going strong. We had a lot of great talent, got a chance to see something. I mentioned in the book, though, that I really enjoyed taking photos in the high school gyms and in the smaller arenas, because for an old school fan, there's something about not having all the pyrotechnics, not having all the big cameras for TV, and it's just you in the ring and watching the match, and not the distractions. The music is great, and it was what was needed to come along at that time. But I still enjoyed the old school until it was the only thing that could happen because they couldn't afford the big arenas. Then it was like a sad thing. But on the way up, I really enjoyed it, and also I was one of the between me and Gratchner, we were one of the few photographers there. When I go up to Minneapolis, they'd kind of say, we already have plenty of photographers at ringside. We don't need any more. And so I was like a third wheel, so I if I wanted to get ringside seats, I had to have, if I wanted to get ringside shots, I had to have a ringside seat.
So
and a lot of times I did. I never minded purchasing a ticket, because I thought, if I'm not willing to purchase a ticket, why should other fans purchase a ticket? So a fan anyway.
So with this, Joyce, like, were you ever paid for your photos as you were getting into it, or was it more or less kind of a hobby and a labor of love?
That is a short answer. No, I was not.
Okay. Next question. No, but I mean,
And which is why I never really felt any obligation to get them pictures. You know, I worked with the Wrestling News because I felt they had the most integrity in their journalism, if there is such a thing in wrestling journalism. But but I didn't really want my photos associated with some fantastic story of our Nick and Ray splitting up for good, you know, that type of thing. So I wanted to know what the story was going to be. I didn't really do interviews, but I had a friend in Peoria who was willing to write the stories if I'd provide the photos. And so a few times we submitted them, but no, it was not for pay. They were on too tight a budget. And I was okay with that. I mean, I just wanted to have my name out there. It opened some doors to be able to say that your name is in there. And but I wasn't doing it for pay. It was a hobby. And I wanted the pictures for myself. I talk to a lot of photographers now who tell me they sent their film canister in, or they sent their slides in, or they sent all of their stuff to the magazine and they never got it back. So I didn't want that. So I had to wait till I could make copies and then send it to them. By that time, sometimes it was past what they were interested in, or they already had enough pictures of that particular match. And so no, I'm not sorry that I did it that way.
Joyce, you've done probably hundreds of shoots or hundreds of matches that you attended to get these ringside photos. When you were ringside, were there any wrestlers that put it this way, that made sure that you got the good shot? In other words, did they like see where you were at and then sort of make sure to work over to where you were so that you could get a really good shot?
Yes, definitely. The one that sticks out in my mind most is Pat Patterson. We had given Patterson and Orton a ride that night to the arena because they were friends with Alfred Hayes, and
I'm shocked that it would be Pat Patterson. By the way, I'm absolutely stunned that it would be Pat Patterson.
Yeah.
Anyway, he was pretty nice to me, and so then he knew where we were sitting because we had gone back to shoot some pictures of Ray and Pat with the belts then, and they were wrestling the High Flyers, I believe, and he knew I was sitting ringside there, not shooting at ringside, but sitting ringside, and he came over to where I was sitting, and there's a photo in the book. Sorry I didn't send it, but it's in the book that. And he came over to head slam one of them into my seat and said, was right beforehand saying, "Get up, get up, get up," and I got the shot right before he said that, and darn if he didn't slam him into the seat, but he knew we would, get out of the way and not bother him, and those were really great days because the wrestlers really trusted the fans to not interfere. The police were right handy if anybody got out of control, but they were throwing wrestlers right out to the feet of your seat there, and there were no guardrails, no ropes, nothing. Just look down and there's a wrestler at your feet, and I love that. I understand they can't do it today, and that fans have evolved, and I understand security totally when you got a big crowd, but I just loved how and a lot of the wrestlers would generate heat by yelling at a guy that was out there. Alfred Hayes primarily, he would come out to this guy. What is that filthy odor? And to a guy that was a couple of seats down from me, and I got some great shots while he would do that. And Bobby Heenan a lot of times would sit right in front of me when he was sitting at ringside because he knew his back would be protected. So yeah, I would say so. They knew I was there.
So you were in Waterloo a couple of weeks ago, and you actually set up you set up a table for your book. And I mean, considering the amount of fans that are there that are, I've said that Waterloo is a place for like not real wrestling fans, but if you really want to appreciate the history of the business, that's where you go. So, I mean, how cool was it to have like the stand, the table during that Hall of Fame weekend?
That was kind of my goal the whole year, and what kept me going is if I don't get this book done and get it ordered and get things ready to go and get the notice out there that I'm going to have a table, I knew the sales weren't going to go very well. I mean, I would have publicity from you guys' podcast and website, but I knew Waterloo was going to, because there's nothing like having the book right there. You can look at it and have with people with money in their hand, and if you do it online, a lot of times I'll get to it, I intended to get it, but I did very well, almost paid for the table itself.
You can do the hard sell. You can do the hard sell. You can look like,
it was fun to share the memories with people, and everybody really seemed excited to see something about AWA memories. I'm not crediting my photos and myself so much. I'm just saying there's still a lot of great nostalgia out there for the AWA and the memories of those old days. And that's probably why your show has been so successful too.
Joyce, first of all, as far as the success that you had selling your books, you had more people come up to your table in the first 5 minutes than I have had at my gimmick tables in the last 40 years. You did extremely well, and a great point about the nostalgia for the AWA, because if you think about it, aside from what you are doing now with the book, and aside from what we're doing, ain't nobody doing AWA. Everything is modern era wrestling, and that's part of the reason the book for me was such a wonderful experience. First of all, it was nostalgic in a good way, and I got teared up a couple of times. Got to admit it. Looking at some of those old pictures, and then all of a sudden you're thrust right back there. I mean, you're back to the 1970s. And you're talking to Nick at the conventions, or Buddy Wolf, or whoever it might be, and you don't get that anywhere else. You just don't. So, again, that's just an aside. One thing that I wanted to talk about with you, and we touched on this a little bit the last time you were on the show. Trust is one thing, but you developed a personal relationship, a friendship with. Is that Brutus Beefcake that we just saw there? Was that Dizzy Ed?
That's who it was.
Yeah, a quick look at Dizzy Ed Boulder, Brutus the Barber Beefcake. That did not make the cut, as I understand.
No, it's one of the ones I had to leave out, sadly.
Yeah, that was going to be page 331, I think.
That's in Rockford. Walking down the hall, he was there when the very first night that Hulk Hogan came, and
imagine that.
Yeah, what a surprise!
Wow, the coincidence there.
I really thought they were brothers at first,
Well, yeah, I mean they had us all believing it, But talk about some of the wrestlers that you had friendships. We talked about Nick, and of course, Nick is first and foremost on the list. But I know you mentioned Lord Alfred Hayes, Bobby Heenan, because you did it all. You picked the guys up from the airport, you took them to the restaurants, whatever. You had kind of an inside track. So any particular favorites or anybody that stands out as, yeah, I was really good friends with that person?
I would say the ones you mentioned, Nick, Bobby, Lord Alfred, of course, Remus, Sergeant Slaughter, Super Destroyer, who I never realized would come back to be a fan. But Bobby was very private person, as you can imagine. His personality as a friend was totally different than what he was on TV. Although he would joke and make funny remarks all the time, but very private person, very soft spoken, and did not like to be around people. So and I think where I hit the right tone with most of the wrestlers was I wouldn't constantly bother them. I probably would get a photo with them if I could, or an autograph, but I knew when to let them alone if they were upset about something, or if they were talking amongst themselves. I knew not to ask, like, hey, what are you talking about? Or, I just would listen in, and I would just smile, or and just didn't make a pest of myself, didn't cause them any problem. And there were times when Bobby would I remember one time at the airport, Lanza was going to go with somebody else, and Bobby was coming to my car, and Bobby said to him, "Don't go with them. They're well, I won't say what he said, but he said that a not so kind term about them. Come on with us." And so Bobby knew that he would be able to be himself, be trusted, and Nick same way. And Nick was probably the worst at the time for kayfabe. I mean, there was a time when he would say, "So what do you think about if we go skiing out at Aspen next week?" Yeah, and I knew they weren't going to go skiing. But, Nick had to play that line.
No kidding.
So, yeah, but you just let him go along with it. And Nick asked constant questions about things. So what's the story on this? What's does on this? And people would laugh. The other wrestlers would laugh, because the same old story of not at him, but just with him. Of Nick's so curious, and Nick's it takes an hour to tell the same story that.
I don't think I ever had a short conversation with Nick.
No, never.
Did he use big words too, Joe? Did he use big words?
I've always said that what you saw from Nick on camera, it really was, I think, representative of what he was in real life. Nick could talk.
Except when he would come out to do a promo, a lot of times he would have that little dictionary with him, and he'd find a word like, obstivianskernbabble, and he'd come out and he'd having no idea what it, but he just before the camera turned on, he went out and he delivered that $1 million word with that little Webster's American Dictionary in his pocket. So,
but he would still, once he learned that word, he would continually try to use that word in conversation.
He was proud of it. He was proud of that at that point.
He didn't know what the hell it meant. So, Joyce, all of your work, doing all of these photos and so forth, you've been honored by Cauliflower Alley. You've been honored by the Hall of Fame in Waterloo. How does that make you feel? I mean, I got to imagine really good, but let's hear it in your own words.
It makes me feel really good in that the fact that I was honored by both was not so much for my photo ability, but for my loyalty and staying with it, and for being a friend. I got the Red Bastien Friendship Award from Cauliflower Alley because people found me to be approachable and to be a kind person, more or less, and that's really how I am in most cases. And in Waterloo, it's not only because I take decent photos, but it's because I'm willing to show up year after year after year and be there for them. I get this note in April all the time is saying, "You're going to be there to take photos for us again, aren't you?" And yeah, of course I am, because I want to be there anyway. And it's not like it's an honor. Sometimes it's a lot of work, because then I have to leave something maybe that I wanted to do or be with somebody and say, "Hey, I gotta go take photos of this event," because I promised it for them. But it's a duty. I'll tell you what. The last time at Waterloo, I'm feeling a little bit at my age. This was the 24th Waterloo thing, and standing up at that stage for some of those speeches, they went on and on. There were 9 awards, and they went on, and standing up there for all that time, I was so glad to sit down.
There would be times where we would be talking, or I'd see you in a conversation, and next thing I know, I turn my head, and you moved on to something else. So you've gone from being conversational with people to having to do your job. And I mean, one of the things that I saw you guys sitting ringside, and it got me thinking that for all of the pictures that you've taken over the years, and you talk about having this accessibility at ringside, were there ever any times where you got a little nervous and you felt like maybe you were going to be in harm's way, and like I have to get out of here before something bad happens?
A few times, but luckily nothing ever. I never got injured there. There were a couple times early on when Mike Grashner tried to get me access right at ringside when I was only, I would say 16 or 17, just first learning how to do photos. And he couldn't get me in some of the bigger towns, but he said like at the high schools, maybe I could, try and learn. But the state commission in Illinois wouldn't let me do it. They told him, they said, no, she's too young. She won't know to get out of the way. She'll get hurt. And so eventually I had to prove myself that I could know. And I want to get the shot, but I don't want to get hurt. So I try to get out of the way. Yeah. Some of the photographers that I see nowadays, I am really glad that I'm not doing that because they get up in the ring and actually shoot from that. Yeah. I think that's very dangerous. In fact, we saw a guy at Waterloo who had 2 different cameras that he was switching off with, and his camera was on the ring apron while he was shooting with the other one, and they threw him into the guy into the ring rope, and he actually lost the camera to the floor. I think it was okay, but you can't do stuff like that.
Yeah. So I kind of want to follow up here with that. I mean, when you're getting into it, and because you want to be safe, but you want to get the shot too, did you feel that, being a girl or a female and, a woman doing that, do you feel like maybe you were treated differently, or were they trying to protect you a little bit more than maybe you wouldn't get as much accessibility to as maybe some of the male counterparts?
Yeah, I think that's true. That's why I think I went up to the ring and got a lot of the pose shots at the introduction times and at the end. But most of the ones that I got for action shots were taken from my seat rather than right at ringside there. Okay. There were a couple times in Peoria where I actually had a seat right at the ringside table, the announcer's table, and when they'd come out onto that table, there were a couple of times I didn't get out of the way as quick as I should have. I didn't get hurt, but it
was a learning experience.
Mike kind of told me later, when that happens, maybe just clear out of there a little more. The battle royals, I always would back way out because I didn't want to be right there. It's kind of an evolving thing. You learn where to be and where not to be. But I definitely think that they didn't give me as much access because of female. Obviously, I couldn't go into the dressing rooms, and like some of the guys could get pose shots back there. Sometimes they would arrange for me to get some pose shots if they had a separate room set up, and I could go back there with multiple ones. But that's one of the ones that where I had that was in Chicago, and I'm not sure whether they purposely came out on that side to get the pin. That was a boot camp match, and all 4 of the participants, including Greg Gagne, all bled that night. And this is Sarge pinning Ray Stevens, Nick being the other one, and I had prime access to that. I didn't have to move out of my seat to get that shot. So I think that there might have been some prearranged thing of let's go out on that side and get the pin. And some of the other photographers were not too happy because they were on the other side of the ring and didn't get the shot. So it works out good and bad.
Every time I see a picture of Ray or hear his name, the first thing that pops into my mind is that infectious guttural laugh that he had. I mean, Ray was a teenager up until he died. He was a little kid the entire time and loved to have fun. So just seeing that picture, just thank you for reminding me of Ray the Crippler Stevens, one of a kind.
Joyce, before I talk about the brigade, because we have to, I mean, that was such an integral part of what we did back in the 70s. Just a couple of sides there, talking about your photography experience and knowing the longer, you know, and I didn't shoot pictures nearly as long as you did, couple, 3, 4, 5 years, but you learn, you know, you kind of anticipate, you've got that sixth sense, where to be and, you know, what move is coming up next and so on and so forth. Although I must say a couple of times with me, I'm taking a picture of, I don't know what the hell I was taking a picture of. I look up at the corner and the shot is completely obliterated. It's totally black. And no, I did not have the lens cap on. It was totally black. And I put the camera down and I looked up, and what was black, what was eclipsing, was Jerry Blackwell coming over the top rope right into the vicinity of where I was seated. So, you know, I'm not the fastest guy in the world anyway. Unless it's a buffet, it takes me forever to, you know, tie my shoe. But for some reason or other, I really moved when I saw the eclipse known as Jerry Blackwell coming over the top rope and just got out of the way. Another time, Mr. Bockwinkel got a little bit irritated with me because I think I might have been daydreaming a little bit at ringside, and he was wrestling Rick Martel, and they took it to the outside, and Nick wanted to throw Martel into a turnbuckle or a ring post or something, and I'm just like zoned out. And I hear, Mr. Karsh, would you kindly get out of my way? And it was Nick, and that woke me up. It did real quickly. So yeah, ringside can be a very interesting place to shoot pictures. And of course, you know, if you don't take the lens cap off, and Bobby Heenan accuses you of being Wally Carbo's illegitimate kid, so everybody at ringside can hear you, it gets a little rough. Let's talk about the Bockwinkel Brigade. Unless you were a part of it, unless you experienced that back in the 70s, the camaraderie, not only the fact that Nick got us in and, you know, watched out for us, but it was so special back then, whether it was Nick or Bobby Heenan being involved or whoever it was. You and I, Larry Hennig showing up at a one unannounced at one of the Bockwinkel Brigade conventions, along with a friend of his, and I'm sure you remember this, Joyce, his old war buddy, who proceeded to take off his shirt and show us his old war wound right next to his nipple as we are trying to conduct a Bockwinkel Brigade convention. But yeah, but talk about that a little bit in terms of the camaraderie and just what it meant, at least that 1-2 times a year when we all got together.
Yeah, I really, you know, wanted to join a fan club, and you know, so once I found out there were wrestling magazines that covered some of the fan clubs and how good they were, you know, yours constantly got rave reviews and talked about how involved Nick was with the brigade and how it was one of the longer running ones. So I wanted to be a part of that, and I wasn't, you know, I really liked Nick, but I wasn't sure about Ray Stevens. He was kind of Not my favorite at first, because I had liked Dr. X, and I still hadn't forgiven Ray for supposedly breaking his leg. But
Terrible.
yeah, anyway, but I liked Nick, and so I wrote to you in December of November or December of '72, if you can believe it. And yeah, and I got an acknowledgement from you with the first bulletin, and I thought, and I read that thing cover to cover, or I read it so many times. The staple was coming out, and I just thought, oh, this is like the be all end all, And then it had a list of all the people that were in the brigade, and the towns they lived in. And that next summer, I met Helen Martin and Pat Gibbs, who, as you know, were also longtime members of the brigade. And being fans of Nick was a lonely thing at the time, because he was one of the most hated heels out there. And so it was nice to have some people that you could depend on and share your love of Nick with, in addition to yourself. So I think I wrote to you and called you more often back then than probably half of the brigade. And God bless you, you answered once in a while. And so
Wow.
I know.
Well, that's more than I do for most people.
I know. So anyway, it was a fun time. The conventions were just, a memory that you could not replace. And it was just a chance for everybody to get together and meet people who you had only read about in bulletins, and have Nick around us, and what access we had. We didn't. Same old story. You don't appreciate it at the time, and until you realize that when it's gone, that what a great time that was, and what great access we had. That was in Las Vegas at one of the CAC conventions. When
I look like a Lens Crafters commercial gone bad. I mean, good grief! I could stare at a fly on a shelf and burn him to death with those laser-like. What year would you say that
I would
was?
guess that is probably 2004, 2005, because of my hairstyle. You probably had just been at the buffet. That's all I can say.
What are you saying? What are you saying? That I spent a lot of time?
I have no room to talk.
Nick, you've never seen a buffet you haven't loved.
Anyway, as I was about to say, Joyce is alluding to the access that we had to Nick during these conventions. Being a TV guy and knowing those TV taping days, Nick would actually leave the studio where he was doing these TV tapings and the promos for all the towns, and he would come out and talk to the Bockwinkel Brigade for an hour, and then finally, the poor guy had to get back in there. But so when Joyce says he begrudgingly, got involved with us or what have you, he loved it, and we loved him, and there was nothing like it. So thanks for the memories, Joyce.
Al DeRusha really was very helpful to us, and that he would come get Nick when he absolutely had to get back to doing the tapings. But he tried to help and give us as much time with Nick as we could. And Nick really went over the top with that. We had over an hour of questions and answers, and he would just answer question after question, silliest questions you ever heard.
He loved it. He loved it.
He loved it.
He would try to deny it, but you're right. In reality, he loved it and he ate it up.
Yeah, he really did.
Let's sell Joyce's book.
Yeah. So how can people get your book, Joyce?
I had a table at Waterloo. I haven't found another venue yet where I want to do that. I'd like to do that again if an opportunity comes up. But so I'm keeping my ears open for other opportunities. I'm not going to be at CAC, and the tables at the gathering were a little above my price range, but I will be there. And I'm trying to make it as easy as possible for people. So I'm handling all the distribution myself. I've got PayPal account, and they can send me either a Facebook DM, and I'll give them all the details, or send me an email at joyce.paustian@gmail.com, which is also where my account is under PayPal. The books are $20 and $6 shipping and handling within the U.S. So, and if there's anybody outside the U.S., I'll get them an estimate of what it costs, but it'll be higher.
If you're an
So
AWA
it's,
fan, Chris, you know this. It's reliving the memories, looking at those pictures, hundreds and hundreds of pictures.
Yes.
It's just extraordinary. And Joyce, I can't tell you, excuse me, enough times how proud of you I am. You know that. And job well done. And if we can do anything on this podcast or on the AWA Unleashed page or the Slick Mick page or whatever, to get this book over and out there for the public, we're going to do it, because there it is right there. Look at that gorgeous hunk of woman right there on the front cover. Come on. Boy, Woody Perkins is a lucky guy. I'm telling you that.
I'll be sure to tell him.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? And we love him too. Woody's one hell of a guy.
He's put up with a lot in my wrestling hobby.
So I got the email joyce.paustian@gmail.com, right?
Thank you. Yeah. And
okay.
If anybody needs more details, just have them email me or send me a DM, and I get them. Everybody's been really responsive so far. Anybody that's come in, next thing I know, there's a $20 in my PayPal account, and I want your book right away. So poor Woody's made about 15-20 trips to the post office each day. So
hey,
it's a good problem to have.
Gives him something to do,
exactly.
He made one trip to there it is. Put her up there again, Chris. Let's take another look at it. There you go.
And I mean, you can just look at see, the great thing is I can open it up to any page and I'm going to have photos.
Amazing.
Like any page. I mean, you just boom. Oh, look, more pictures.
Yeah.
More pictures. I mean, it's really incredible. It's really incredible how it brings you back. And for those of us that never got a chance to see it, it kind of gives us a real feeling of what it was like. It literally it puts me there mentally. So I appreciate that.
And Joyce, you don't have to, we're not asking for a kickback or anything else. I consider this paying you back, for the Baron von Raschke poster that I maliciously sold to you when I could have given it to you. And also for you sending me the Sherry Martel doll. That to me, that's, I owe you.
It's an action figure.
Pardon me?
It's an action figure.
That's not a doll. It's an action figure. Joyce, continued success. You are one in a million. You deserve every good thing that you get. And
keep the stories coming and keep the AWA good memories alive. It's that's what people want to hear, and I'm so glad we could both contribute toward that. And it's so nice to hear things about the AWA that back when we know it was such a fantastic place to be a fan.
Absolutely. Love you, dear. Continued success. Go get them.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Joyce.
Thanks, Joyce.
Yeah, I'll hope to meet you better, Joe. I'll get you a book down the line here.
Well, maybe an upcoming Mick Karch event.
Whoa,
hey,
there's a Mick Karch event?
Well, yeah, the fact that I wake up in the morning is an event. Good luck, Joyce, and of course we'll stay in touch.
Thanks again, guys. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Great luck with the show.
Thank you.
All right, we'll remove her from the stream. We'll come back to her here in a little bit. Joe, the one thing that she didn't tell you is it's going to be $25 with shipping and handling.
Well, no shipping and handling if she is going to hand me the book.
No, there's shipping and handling.
right.
which 99% of it is the handling.
Yes, exactly.
That's right. Hey, it's a long, Joe, you got long arms. It's a long way for Joyce to hand that book off.
You're making her do the work, man. You know, so.
Oh,
All right.
she's such a great guest. And I'm telling you guys, you're not going to find a nicer person anywhere. From heart to soul, Joyce Paustian is the real deal. God love her.
Could have had more time. I'm amazed and impressed that at a very young age, and considering the time period, I mean, we're talking early 70s, right, Mick?
Yes.
That a woman, or in her case, still a girl, was able to work her way in and gain that access. I mean, that's absolutely incredible and phenomenal for her to be able to do that.
And then you had people that were like legitimately watching out for her. I mean, to me, that just gives me so much. I never met Nick Bockwinkel in my life, but I hear that, and I know he was a really good friend of yours. It makes me just respect him and Bobby and everybody who was like, hey, we want to make sure that she's okay and that she's doing what she wants to do and she isn't taken advantage of. That to me just elevates them so much more in my book.
Chris, you hit it right on the head. You know, the business can get a little ugly, a little testy every once in a while, especially if you're a lady, especially back then. And the fact that Nick and Bobby and guys like that were looking out for her and Lord Alfred speaks volumes not only about them, but about Joyce.
Yeah, absolutely. We got about 3 minutes here, guys. Let's do some shout outs and then we'll take it home. Mick, who's your shout out?
Shout out is in some cases, sadly, it's a posthumous shout out. But we were talking about the Bockwinkel Brigade, and so many of them are still around. Some aren't. But I alluded to the fact that it was just a great time for me in wrestling, the camaraderie, the friendship. So those of you in the brigade that were part of the journey, a shout out to you.
And Chris, I'm going to ask if you go before my shout out, please.
Sure. I'm going to go with my buddy Ryan Wenzel, who gave us an extra set of hands down in Waterloo, kind of helped us with some logistics, and he was able to kind of be a third wheel there. And he's one of my buddies. I love him dearly. And Ryan, I appreciate your help, and I'll see you soon.
And my shout out is going to require a preface. So we give each other a lot of crap on this show, all in fun. My shout out is going to go to Chris Tubbs and Mick Karch. There's a term that's called labor of love. We all get the sense and the feeling of what that phrase means. What I don't like about it, it's not laborious, it's not laborious to do this show. Chris, you started this show, brought in Mick. For some reason, you guys decided to contact me and brought me into this show. And it has allowed me to relive the memories of my childhood, of my career with the AWA, which started in 1985. And on many occasions, since I've started co-hosting this show, I've had people come up to me and thank me for letting them relive their childhood memories and learn some of the things, the behind the scenes things. None of this would be possible without the two of you. And Chris, especially to you, this is your brainchild. You had put this together. And for that, it's not only my shout out this week, it's my thank you for AWA Unleashed and including me in.
Wow.
Thank you.